Audio on demand from Vision Christian Media.
So often we inherit other people's views of success. What does successful parenting look like? What does a successful marriage look like? But it's far better to actually go, this is what success looks like for me. And this is the vision that we have, something you could actually put your finger on and go, I know when I've reached it. It needs to be clear.
What challenges are you currently faced with? It could be in your work, your family, or in your marriage. To achieve real change, you have to have the right mindset. Our guest today is psychologist Andrew Beveridge. He's also a leadership development consultant. We're going to talk about some of the principles he shares with corporate leaders and how to have the right mindset and how to take action, whether that is in our work, our families, or relationships, with a Christ-like mindset. That's Andrew Beveridge with my wife Kate, and I'm Brett Ryan for Focus on the Family, Australia. Well, welcome back to the program.
Fantastic to be back, Brett and Kate. Great to see you both again.
So, what is mindset?
Yeah, look, it is one of these areas where the kind of the research definition is pretty similar to what you would think. It is literally the way we think about the world, the way we think about ourselves, and the way we think about each other. So it is a thought process. It's a way of thinking. And I guess the mindset part of that is it tends to be patterns of that, consistent ways that we think about things. So we can have multiple mindsets, really. I think the one that probably most people are familiar with is things like optimism, pessimism.
Yeah.
It's an outlook on the world. It's a way of thinking about the world, and it obviously shapes our behavior, our feelings, our actions, everything else about that in our life as well.
I mean, from a Christian point of view, there's a verse, it says, set your minds on things above, not on things that are on earth.
Yes.
Now that's, from a faith point of view, but we can apply that still practically about how we think more positively. Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is a good report, think and dwell upon those things.
Yeah.
So how do we, why is it important to have the right mindset? Why is it going to help us in our everyday life, in our work, in our families, or in our relationships?
Yeah, well, I think as we're talking about this idea of mindset to action, it does have such a link to the actions that we take. And so the way we think is so closely tied to our behavior and the actions that we take. And that's true in our relationships, it's true in our parenting, it's true in our work for sure as well. That by changing our mindset and just even being conscious of our mindsets, that we can actually have a far better opportunity to reach the things that matter to us. So we often get so caught up in the busyness, in the patterns of the ways that we're doing things, that we don't actually stop and go, is this taking me to where I need to go, or what's important for me or for our relationship or for our kids or for our family? And so we can drift along for years really without thinking about our mindsets. We all have them. But it's just really, are we conscious of them, and are they helping us, or are they actually getting in the way of what's important to us?
So often do you find that people's mindset have come from their family of origin?
Oh, for sure. Yes. Yeah. I think we can all relate to, both my parents have passed away now, but they're still in my head at different points. You hear their voices and often in positive ways and in reinforcing ways, but there will be things that pass down. And I see that in my kids. I think it's one of the things of, with parenting children, one of the delightful things and one of the frustrating things is exactly the same, is that they are the product of you and your relationship. So you literally see your relationship embodied in a human being. And I think, as you would with your kids and we find with ours, you can kind of relate to different elements of their journey and go, oh, that's exactly what I would have done. Why are they doing that? Why don't they just do this instead?
That's me!
Yeah, that's right. Forgetting that they're 18 or something and I'm 50 plus, let's call it that.
50 plus, I like it.
The correlation for having a positive mental health flows into our physical health and well-being.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we're not only just talking about our minds, we're also talking about our health, physical health, but also it relates to our social and our psychological aspects of our well-being.
Well, it would go both ways, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
so
for
if you're physically active, it's going to help your mindset.
Absolutely. And so that's one of the really interesting things. And I think if you look at research around, for example, treatments around anxiety and depression, really the quality of the outcomes is often as good with an exercise-based program if people can stick to it and it's designed well as it can be with a medication type approach. Now, obviously, you've got to do the right thing and go under the advice that you've got, but it's an interesting combination where it's actually that powerful. It is like taking a tablet. And I find myself, exercise for me is like taking a tablet in terms of my mood and outlook. And so exercise, I sort of enjoy doing it. I'm learning to enjoy doing it, but a big part of the reason I do it is actually the impact on the way that I think and the way that I feel. And I very tight association for me. And I know that when I'm not doing it, I can feel that sort of descent off.
It's true, isn't it? I mean, recently I've said to Brett, if I feel flat or even tired, I'll go, let's go for a walk.
Yes.
Let's go for a walk, get into nature. And we feel so much better when we get back.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier, a few moments ago, about, the classic being an optimist and a pessimist. What is it about optimists that are more successful? But is it more than just being an optimist that makes it successful? What is the correlation?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So when you look at the research around it, and I think, that we're going to talk about 4 areas today of which that optimistic outlook is part of it, it definitely does have an impact. So it does shape your behavior and the likelihood of things working out. There was a fantastic piece of research a number of years back in the UK where they had brought people into a lab. They gave them a newspaper to read, and they basically said, we want you to count the number of pictures there are in this newspaper. Very boring activity, very easy to do. But the trick that they did is on the way in, they asked people, would you consider yourself to be lucky or unlucky? And so people would categorize themselves in life as, I'm more of a lucky person or I'm more of an unlucky person. They had them reading through the newspaper, but the trick was there was a half-page advertisement in that newspaper that said, if you show this to the experimenter, you will win £50. Okay, which is a decent amount of money. UK, I guess that's about 3,500 Australian dollars at the moment. But it's a fair bit. It's worth noticing, right? Guess which group were the ones who found that and pointed that out to the researcher? It was the lucky ones. And you might look at that and go, oh, it's true. There are lucky people and unlucky people. It's not that. It changes the way that they look at situations and opportunities. And so if you consider yourself to be more lucky, you actually are more likely to spot opportunities. If you consider yourself to be unlucky, what are you going to focus on? The risks, the downsides. If I show the experimenter this, it might be embarrassing. Maybe that's just something in the newspaper. It's a trick or something, so I won't bother doing it. Yeah. So they might even still literally see the same thing, but they respond to the situation differently. Yeah. And it's the same with optimism and pessimism. If you decide that things aren't going to work out, what's the point in trying? Like that's going to shape your behavior pretty quickly versus going, there's more good than bad in the world. Yeah. I can actually shape some of the things that happen around me. If I apply myself, there will be some good outcomes from that. It does change the way that you go through that journey of life for sure.
And applying that to those who have got a faith, Christ has given us the ability by his Spirit to be more, ideally, more optimistic. Because we are truly blessed. Yeah. He has plans for us, hope in a future. Yes. We can hear those words and we go, oh, does it really apply to me? So how do we get that mindset even for those who have got a faith to change the way that we see ourselves and see the world?
Yeah, it's a really great point. So, the Bible doesn't talk a lot about seeking happiness, right? It talks about seeking joy. It's different. So joy is, there's a separation from circumstance there. Your happiness is really driven by what happened today. Oh, my car broke down. I'm unhappy. That's a natural response, right? Whereas you can have a deeper joy. And that word hope, and what's fascinating is that these areas we'll talk about are actually driven out of a field in psychology or study of what is literally called hope. And so what we're finding is in the world of psychology, we're researching big issues like this or big concepts like hope, like awe. What does it mean to have awe? These aren't, rats in a maze type things now. We're getting to deeper things of what makes us human. And my personal view on that, I'm a scientist and trained as a scientist, but I think if you look at the origins of science, it was really set up by people of faith to go, we want to understand how God's creation operates. Yeah. So I don't see the same. I know some people will say, well, science versus religion, and there's elements of that for sure. But I think for me, I find a lot of this research actually uncovers who we're created to be.
That's so good.
Right? And who we're meant to be in that context. Now, it's not a replacement for reading your Bible, being in community with other people, but it does help you to understand, gosh, in order to be a full human being as we're created, why wouldn't you use some of this research to help you to become that and to strengthen your faith and to uncover, what does hope look like in practice? Great thing to pursue. So what do I do now?
Yeah.
It's so good you say that, because many people say, I just want my children to be happy.
Yeah.
And it's such a danger in that it just sets them up to look for the next thing that's going to make them happy. Because we all know in our everyday life, we can say we're feeling really happy and then something happens and we're not happy anymore.
Yeah.
And so we go on this roller coaster ride and instead of just going, well, God's got this.
Yeah.
God's got this. He's got a plan. He's got a purpose. And I'm not diminishing hard stuff, because we've all faced hard stuff and we walk through it, but it's a matter of choosing, as you're saying, the mindset of, am I going to choose joy?
Yes. And look, there'll be people listening today that are unhappy, and it's not your fault, right? It can be circumstances and things that happen. Every emotion has a function. There's a reason for every emotion. It serves a purpose.
Yeah.
So it's not to go, well, I'm unhappy, therefore I've failed, or I'm wrong, or I'm, my partner's going to be disappointed, or God's going to be disappointed with me. It really is then to say, well, how do I use that emotion to spur me on to something positive that's actually going to help me? So I think that it's not removing emotion, it's actually harnessing our emotions is a big part of how we can be more successful in our mindsets and our lives.
And then growing
sure.
through it. I think every difficult thing that we face, if we choose to grow in it, it turns into a positive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, this is excellent, and I'm really looking forward to unpacking the 4 principles. Are they 4 principles
that's right.
to help with our mindset? Our guest today is psychologist Andrew Beveridge, and you're listening to Focus on the Family, Australia.
The Word for today is Australia's most widely read daily devotional, designed to give you practical teaching to keep you focused on your relationship with Jesus. Read it online or subscribe to the free printed edition at thewordfortoday.com.au.
Well, welcome back. Our guest today is psychologist and leadership development consultant Andrew Beveridge, and you're listening to Focus on the Family, Australia. We're talking about mindsets, and now it's getting a little bit more of a, what can we do to change our mindset? So you talk about 4 principles or 4 things that we can do. So over to you.
Yeah, for sure. So we think about there being 4 mindsets, and I think probably the analogy I would use is it's like being on a journey. So if you're going on a journey, you want to know where you're going first. It's very hard to start a journey if you don't have a destination in mind. But we do it in life a lot. We actually just keep going on with things and making decisions, even though we don't have a clear endpoint in mind. And so the first one
Australians do, she'll be right, mate.
It'll be fine.
She'll be right.
Yeah, that's right. Just head north or something.
Yeah.
So that goal orientation is like a destination on a map. So goal orientation is the first of those 4. And it's really going, this is where I want to head. This is the destination I have in mind. It's something that's attuned to a broader sense of purpose and meaning, so it has that depth to it. And it's really being clear about success in your own terms. What does success mean to you? Because so often we inherit other people's views of success. What does successful parenting look like? What does a successful marriage look like? And we can chase after that, but it's far better to actually go, this is what success looks like for me. This is how I want to define it and think about it. And this is the vision that we have, maybe as in our marriage, in terms of where we want to head, in our parenting, but just have a clear vision, but something you could actually put your finger on and go, I know when I've reached it. It needs to be clear. Yeah.
So having that goal or that mindset, and Kate and I often talk about it in marriage. What do you want your marriage to look like?
Yes. Yeah.
And put those things into practice.
Yeah, for sure.
Where are you now? So we're doing an evaluation. Where would you like to be, and how are you going to get there?
Yeah, for sure. And so that idea of setting goals routinely and chasing after them, that's what that goal orientation looks like in practice, is you actually have as the name would suggest, a goal-oriented life where you are heading towards goals. And sometimes that means chipping off smaller goals and working towards them rather than just having some big lofty goal that is way off in the future.
Well, it boosts morale.
Yeah,
if you have those little ones that you can tick
you
off.
get those wins. Like we're driven, we're designed and we're driven in that way where we want to get things done and we want to have some accomplishment. But we can so often set ourselves up to not have goals, to just be drifting along. Yeah. Your relationship one's a classic one that you're describing there, because you see that so often as people head towards retirement or the kids leaving the house. And then suddenly, what is our relationship without our kids or without work? Yeah. And it can be two people just looking at each other going, who are you? Like, I remember the 25-year-old version of you, but I don't know who you are. Like, because there hasn't been that intention of, let's actually
date each other.
Yeah, let's aim for the kind of relationship that we want to have and the kind of marriage that we want to have. And even to plan that retirement together and go, what would that look like? Yeah. So many people end up bitterly disappointed with their retirements, because after that first 3 months of playing golf and wandering around,
purpose.
Like, well, what is this?
And
what
having,
am I actually
having
doing?
Purpose.
Yeah.
And I guess the setting goals too, in Scripture it talks about where there is no vision, we dwell carelessly.
Yeah.
And so I'm very mindful of that too. If we just go along in the everyday, sometimes you can just feel lost because there was never a vision.
Yeah, that's right. And so I see it when I work with leaders in organizations. It's very obvious where there isn't a vision. Lots of activity. So it doesn't stop people working. People will keep working. They'll turn up and they'll put in their hours and they'll do everything. But that lack of vision means, what are we actually contributing to? You can have a lot of activity without much productivity, right? And and you can be working on absolutely the wrong things. And so you might be working on, let's get the biggest, fanciest house we can get because that's what everyone else is doing, and have this huge mortgage and be trying to pay that off over however many years. Yeah. But is that a goal that you've got? Like, is that actually going to set you up to have the kind of relationship and family that you want? Or are you going to be sitting there at the end of the day feeling a bit sick when those payments are due because you're right on the edge of what you can afford?
Yeah. And that's the reason why, you've mentioned the word goals, and many people would know about SMART goals, specific,
yeah, for sure,
measurable, achievable, realistic, time-orientated. There's a few variations of that, but we need to put those things into practice to see what success looks like.
Yeah. So we
know,
for
you, not everyone else.
For sure. We actually intellectually know how to set goals pretty well as human beings, but we're terrible at doing it. So Strava, the fitness company, have a great piece of research. So they've got an option to set goals in that app and go, right, this year's going to be different. New Year's Eve, bang, I'm going to do this much cycling every day or this much running every day. They have a day they call Quitter's Day. It's the second Friday of every year. And at that point on their data, 80% of people who've bothered to actually go in and set a goal have given up on that goal already. 2 weeks. So you get 2 weeks, basically, not even 2 weeks out of, setting a goal. There's got to be more to it. You've got to actually, it has to be meaningful. It has to be something that's actually important to you rather than, oh, my app's asked me to set a goal, so I'll set one and then I'll give up.
I think a lot of people, New Year's resolutions, they're notorious for being fantastic. But I think people feel like they need to set something new. They want to reset for the new year. So they set goals. Yeah. But then they go, this is too hard.
Well, it's also
once they get back into, because they're on summer break.
And they often,
they're
they often don't make a decision. So if you look at the wording of people's goals, it might be, I want to build my friendships this year.
Yeah, with no practical how.
But it's actually not a decision, right? It's just a preference, All things being equal, I want that to happen versus I will build my friendships. Or even better, I will build friendships with this person, this person, this person by doing this. Yeah. That you can follow through with, and it's actually quite motivating versus going, I want to have more friends. It's like, well, who doesn't want to have more friends? I don't know. It depends on your friends, I guess. But but that want versus will, actually making a decision, we are going to chase after this versus a general all things being equal, I'd love to have more friends, or I'd like to be more fit, or I'd like to do whatever. That's your classic New Year's resolution. About 50% of people set a New Year's resolution. Of that, about 8% get there. So it's pretty, it actually doesn't work that well. Not because a New Year's resolution is a bad thing. It's just we're terrible at actually framing them up.
So we've looked at one of the mindsets. What's the second one?
Yeah, the second one we've talked about a little bit already is that optimistic outlook, and that's really the perspective you bring to the journey. And we've had that, when you travel with people, for example, if you do have people that focus on absolutely everything negative. You turn up at the hotel and it's like, oh, here's the 5 things I hate about this hotel, or, the car, this journey is just terrible, versus someone who is upbeat. Now, the optimism on its own, the research would say it's good, but actually bringing it together with these other things is really what makes it sing, because the outlook, that positive outlook on itself is a good thing, but it's not the answer. And I think that's where people often go, well, I'm an optimist. And we can lead to a dysfunctional level of positivity where it's like, I'm not going to talk about anything negative. I'm not going to focus on anything that goes wrong. It can get dysfunctional. All things being equal, you're much better off being an optimist than a pessimist in life. There's, health research and everything else would say that. But it's really, there's simple things like a gratitude journal is a great thing to do. Just at the end of each day, go, what are 3 things that I'm grateful for? And each day, it's got to be 3 new things. And I can assure you, for those listening on, you do day 1, day 2, day 3, really simple. We've all got about 9, maybe family members or obvious things that we can list out there. And then day 4, 5, 6 start to get hard because it's got to be 3 new things every day. But what happens very quickly is you start to get your eyes off everything that's going wrong and you start going, I need to get my 3 things for the day. And our mind's a funny thing. It will start to go, okay, what am I thankful for? I met with Brett and Kate today. It was a lot of fun. We had a chat, so I can tick that off. That's great. I've got my one.
Oh, that's nice.
That's fine. Well, try my best. And I just do that in a notes app on my phone. I don't do that all the time, but I notice when my mood is starting to go down, if I feel like I'm on a downward spiral a bit, and we all feel like that from time to time, it's perfectly normal. I bring in a technique like that to go, how's that going to help me?
Fantastic.
This is very practical. We've got 2 more to go.
Yep.
Let's go into the third one.
Yeah, so options thinking. This is a fascinating one. In the hope research, one of the things that separates people who've got a sense of hope and purpose in life is they're extremely good at working around obstacles. So when something blocks your path, if you think about that journey, you're walking along and there's a big boulder in the way, you've got a few choices there. You can just go, oh, it's too hard to give up. And that's what we naturally tend to do. Or what's another way? What's another way? What's another way? And so that options thinking, that thinking of what's another pathway, like we're working on teaching our kids that of when things go wrong, don't stop. Like actually go, what's another way? If that goal is important enough to you, remind yourself of the goal, be positive about it. Like look for the positive things, look at the progress you've made. So that optimistic thinking as well and outlook. Yeah. But then that options thinking, what are some options? What's another way? Too often, like the criticism you hear is, oh, you're shifting the goalposts. People hate it when you shift the goalposts. So don't shift the goals, but you can change the plan to get there. People will do that all day. They recognize that. Plan shift. Oh, it didn't work out. We were saving for that holiday and then it got cancelled, or the Airbnb, some event came up and they could get some more money, so they cancelled it out at the last minute. It's easy to throw our hands up and go, give up, or go, okay, so what's another way?
And that includes failure as well, isn't it? Yeah. I remember a quote by Winston Churchill. It said, success is never final, failure is never fatal. It's courage to continue that counts. Yeah. And we need to have that in our own lives, but also to help our children say that, failure is an opportunity to succeed going forward. And so counting the obstacles that happen helps build resilience and helps our children no end.
It shows that you're making the effort. If you're hitting obstacles, it means that you're chasing after something that's important, right? And you're actually doing that. And so when it's really just having that default of what's another way, if you can get your mind to doing that, then that would be great.
And so number 4, what's number 4?
That's it.
I'm looking forward to it.
You're hanging out there. Yep. So drive for growth, and this is probably an easy one to get our head around. It's that momentum on the journey. It's really that get out of bed, get started. So it's a little bit different to the others. So you've got the goal orientation, where am I headed? Optimistic outlook, what's my perspective? Options, what's another way? Drive for growth is what gets us started. It's that motivation to keep going and persist. And so that's something that we can learn and develop. And it's pushing yourself to higher standards as well. It's not just doing the minimum. It's going, look, there's more that we can achieve here and more that we can get done. So, And we can motivate each other. And I think that's a beautiful thing in a marriage. Like, we really use the metaphor of a team in our marriage. And there's things that I'm good at, and there's things that Fiona's excellent at. And so there are times when we can actually motivate each other. And there was a moment just recently with one of our sons, and I said to Fiona, I'm done with it. Like, I can't have this conversation. We're going round and round and round, can't done with it. And she said, well, you're the parent. You can't be done with it. And it was a great one it was quite motivating to get me out of my little wallow.
Funk.
Yeah. And I needed the funk. I needed that moment to go, this is just so hard. But you need that reminder. Well, you've got the rest of your life of parenting.
Yeah.
You don't just
We're
stop.
in it for the long haul.
And we've done hard things before.
Yeah,
like, we've had
that's
hard
right.
moments with that child, with each of our kids, as every parent
So
does.
spiritual muscle, and you can rely on.
Well,
later on.
yeah, but I think the key thing there is we can motivate each other. So how is it that I might motivate my partner? How is it that I might help to motivate our kids to do things that are difficult? And a lot of it's actually looking back and going, look what we've achieved so far. Like, look at the journey and how far we've come. We so often achieve a goal and then just go, oh, great, that's done. And then we don't celebrate it. We need to get better at celebrating that progress. For sure.
Excellent. Well, this has been excellent, and I'm sure many of our listeners will greatly benefit from that, to have to change their mindset.
Great.
And so thank you for joining us today.
Hey, my pleasure.
Our guest today was psychologist Andrew Beveridge. If you'd like to find out more about him and the work that he does, his website is leadership.today. Our family strengthening ministries effectively use all types of media, including radio, TV, print publications, and the internet, to provide real help for families in crisis and those that just need some advice and encouragement. With your financial gift, we can help strengthen families, promote biblical values, and transform lives through the power of the gospel. To partner with us, go to families.org.au. And thanks for joining us. On behalf of Kate and the rest of the team, I'm Brett Ryan, inviting you to tune in for another edition of Focus on the Family, Australia.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.